Hello and welcome to the U.S. Immigration News. Over the last few weeks, families across the world have been watching the immigration system closely, hoping for signs of stability. But what we're seeing instead is another major development that could fundamentally reshape the way thousands of people are sponsored for immigration to the United States. The Trump administration is now considering new financial rules that would tighten the requirements for sponsors who file the Affidavit of Support, the I-864, the form that determines whether a U.S. citizen or green card holder can financially support a family member. And if these changes move forward, it could become significantly harder for many families, especially those with modest incomes, to bring their loved ones to the United States. In this video, we'll go through what the Trump administration is preparing behind the scenes, how these new financial rules could impact sponsors and family-based immigrants, and why these possible changes are raising concerns among families and immigration attorneys as we step further into November 2025. If you are liking this video, please hit the bell button, subscribe, and like it so that you may get updates straight to your smartphone. Now, let's get into the video. Across USCIS service centers, immigration lawyers are reporting that officers are being briefed on possible updates to the financial qualification standards. These updates, still in the internal discussion stage, would require sponsors to meet stricter and more transparent income requirements, with fewer exceptions and fewer ways to use joint sponsors. The goal, according to sources close to the Trump administration, is to reduce the number of sponsored immigrants whose financial support depends on borderline or inconsistent income. To many, this sounds like a revival of the public charge policies introduced during Trump's previous term, policies that created fear and confusion for millions of immigrant families. While these new considerations are not exactly the same, they carry the same spirit: tightened rules, heightened scrutiny, and additional financial burdens placed on U.S. sponsors. Under the possible rule changes, USCIS would be required to verify income using more specific documentation, including multiple years of IRS tax transcripts, employment verification letters, and real-time payroll data. Many households that currently qualify with a small margin above the federal poverty guidelines may no longer meet the threshold if these rules are implemented. Immigration attorneys warn that these new requirements could make it extremely hard for families where one spouse is self-employed, works part-time, or is recovering from recent job changes. These changes could also affect processing timelines. Because USCIS officers would spend more time verifying income and support data, many family-based petitions, including I-130, I-485, and consular processing cases handled through the NVC, may experience additional delays. Officers would be instructed to request supplemental evidence more frequently, meaning more RFEs for families who previously would have been approved without issue. The National Visa Center may also be required to tighten its review of the I-864 form before sending cases to U.S. consulates and embassies. This means families could be stuck in the NVC stage longer, even after becoming documentarily qualified. Interview scheduling could also slow down in countries like India, the Philippines, and Mexico, where already overwhelmed consulates depend heavily on NVC's financial eligibility reviews. What's particularly concerning is that the Trump administration is exploring limits on the use of joint sponsors, a tool many families rely on. Currently, a joint sponsor can step in and provide additional financial support if the primary sponsor's income is not enough. But under the new proposal, joint sponsors may be required to meet a higher income threshold, or may not be allowed at all for certain categories of immigrants. This would hit mixed-status families and lower-income households the hardest. Another early concern is that assets may no longer be accepted as easily as substitutes for income. Today, if a sponsor does not meet the income requirement, assets such as savings, property, or investments can be used to make up the difference. But under the new framework being considered, assets may face stricter valuation rules, making them harder to use to qualify. These changes could create a ripple effect not only at USCIS, but also at the Department of State. Many consulates already enforce financial rules strictly, and the Trump administration's new proposals could empower officers to deny cases more quickly for insufficient financial sponsorship. Immigration lawyers fear that more families could face denials even when they believe they had met all requirements. As this administration explores more restrictive financial standards, families waiting for their petitions may also see delays in the broader immigration system. Green card processing timelines in family-based categories would almost certainly be affected because each petition would require additional verification before approval. For couples waiting on marriage-based interviews or family preference applicants waiting to become current in the visa bulletin, even a small delay could push approvals months further into 2026. This discussion also comes at a time when deportation enforcement is already expanding. The Trump administration has been increasing resources for removal operations, especially for people with pending applications who fall out of status. Stricter financial rules could force more applicants into vulnerable positions if their cases are delayed or denied due to new requirements. Immigration attorneys warn that this combination, tighter financial rules and increased enforcement, could create more hardship for families already struggling with the complexity of the U.S. immigration system. Despite the rising concern, it is important to note that these financial rule changes are still under consideration, not yet published. But in the immigration world, internal discussions often lead to formal rules quickly, sometimes announced through executive orders, sometimes through agency policy memoranda, and sometimes through updates to the USCIS policy manual without any public notice. What attorneys find particularly troubling is the timing. November and December are usually the months when agencies issue end-of-year updates. If the Trump administration is preparing these changes now, they could be rolled out before early 2026. Families who are currently in the immigration process should take note. USCIS has not issued an official announcement yet, but strengthening your financial documentation now is wise. This means ensuring that all tax transcripts, W-2s, pay stubs, bank records, and employer letters are updated, clear, and consistent. If joint sponsors are being used, families should gather as much financial documentation as possible to prepare for potential new requirements. The Trump administration's intention is clear. They want to see stronger financial backing for every sponsored immigrant. The broader message of these policy discussions emphasizes one theme: stricter oversight. Over the past few months, the Trump administration has already introduced new internal reviews, expanded deportation operations, and pushed for more rigorous interviews at USCIS field offices and consulates worldwide. These potential financial changes are part of the same trend, a system moving toward tighter, slower, and more demanding processes. Still, it's important to remember that this is not a final rule yet. Families do have time to prepare, gather better documentation, and consult attorneys if needed. Immigration laws remain complex, but being proactive and informed makes a significant difference. And as always, we will continue to monitor these developments closely. If the Trump administration releases an official proposal, or if USCIS updates its financial guidelines, we will bring you immediate updates. That's all we have for this bulletin. The U.S. Immigration News Channel provides all necessary visa information and procedures for your U.S. immigration journey. It is important to understand the United States immigration processing steps, visa application requirements, processing times, forms, fees, and more. We will continue to provide all information about U.S. visitor visas, such as B-1 and B-2, work visas such as L-1A, L-1B, and H-1B, student visas, green cards, immigrant visas, EB-1, EB-2, EB-3, EB-4, and EB-5, and family immigrant visas. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the U.S. Immigration News Channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.